It's time for the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check out all of our other wonderful links in the description on the Linktree. This week's episode, the Montreal UFO Incident.
Oh, yeah. You know, I actually almost felt like I wanted to do this whole episode with like a French accent.
Yeah.
Just because like the majority of like the interviews and stuff that I watched, as you know, like we're all in French.
Yeah, just to warn everybody, you're probably going to hear a whole lot of really bad French accents on this episode.
and poor pronunciation of French names.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. Before we get started, this was voted upon by our Patreon members. We have 3 tiers of Patreonage. The first tier will get you early access and after hours. The next tier will get you bonus content. This week we did more sightings from the Yukon region. There was a ton of them. I didn't even have time to cover even half of them. There's a bunch.
Oh.
And the top tier allows you to vote on next week's topic. All right, well, let's get into it. The Montreal 1990 UFO incident. But to be more specific, because there's actually a ton of stuff in Montreal, as I see. I didn't realize it's apparently a hotspot. There's a bunch.
Yep.
But this one is at the Place Bonaventure Hotel in downtown Montreal, right smack dab in the middle of one of the biggest cities in Canada. Bunch of witnesses.
Yeah, and it's a gigantic structure. In 1967, when it was opened, it was, at the time at least, it was the world's largest commercial building. Now, it wasn't the tallest, but it was 17 stories, and I think it had, was it 3.1 million square feet of area.
Damn.
And it's a giant building, which some people say that this might be the reason why it could be like a hot spot of sorts, because of how big the structure is in itself, So, and I've even heard people talk about. There's a couple of blogs that I chanced upon while doing the research for this. That it's not just a UFO hotspot. It's also a paranormal hotspot, from what I understand. Now, I've seen a couple different people claiming to experience like even stuff like not just UFOs, like ghosts and stuff too, like disembodied voices and like knocking on doors and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't seen the little bit of research that I did as opposed to that. I didn't see too much evidence for it, but there are people that claim that this is like a hot spot in general, not just UFOs,
Yeah, paranormal. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, paranormal hotspot for sure. A lot of weird stuff going on in Montreal. The case we're talking about tonight went down on November 7th, 1990, and it occurred about 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m., more or less. So just under 3 hours, more like 2.5 hours. Hold on a second. I got to put my phone on silent here. Sorry, apologies. I got a ding, ding, ding. I don't know what that is.
From Agent Kruger.
Oh, is it? I don't know. He's
yeah.
Oh, whoops. He's like texting us while the actual show's going on. That's funny. All right. So where was I? Oh yeah, the event happened November 7th, 1990, 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. approximately. So this is not one of these, it happened for 10 seconds and that was it. This went on for a long time. And
yeah, it was over 3 hours, right?
Well, yeah, about 2.5 hours to 3 hours. And as many as 75 witnesses were on the hotel rooftop at one point or another to witness the event. So we got a bunch of witnesses, and it's a hotel. So it's not like we have a bunch of people who know each other.
It's a UFO party.
Yeah, UFO party, right? Oh, how cool would that be, dude?
That would be awesome. With a pool and
Yeah.
a heated jacuzzi and such,
Yeah.
some beers and everything. Dude, that would be awesome.
Oh man, what a time, dude. What a time. I wish, dude. I wish I could have been there. But yeah, it was so a lot of people, but it was at a hotel, and many of the people were guests at the hotel, so they didn't know each other ahead of time necessarily. Whereas if you had a group of friends who were friends since childhood and you had 10 witnesses that all were from the same town and they all knew each other, that would be a lot easier to hoax. But when you have witnesses from all over the place, you have multiple independent witnesses, then that pretty much entirely rules out a hoax. There's no way these people could have corroborated. And even if they did, we do have photographic evidence anyways. So there is that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have guests, you have hotel employees, you have
Yeah.
police, and at some point you have military.
Yeah, you got anybody and everybody saw this damn thing. So it's a really exciting case. This is one of the better cases I've looked at, to be honest. I've looked at a lot, and this is probably in the top 10. This at least top 10. This one's really good because of just how much evidence there is. Like, there's a ton of evidence. It's awesome. There's so much evidence. All right, so the weather around the time, the weather conditions were the sun set at like 4:30 p.m. The air was clear and cold at sunset, but there was a high humidity, which gradually led to a layer of haze up to several thousand feet. There were sparse clouds between 5,000 and 8,000 feet, but as the night went on, there were more clouds and more haze. So the visibility got worse and worse as you went on. At about 7:30 p.m., two witnesses noted that there was a practice fire alert underway 10 city blocks from the Bonaventure Hotel. These witnesses these people were not on the building, but the reason we're mentioning them is because they saw something from a distance which corroborates what the witnesses on top of the hotel were seeing. So if you have different vantage points around the city, then that makes it less likely that it was a localized optical illusion of some kind. So they noticed that there was some kind of weird fire alert practice going on, and there were a bunch of emergency vehicles like blocking the roads and stuff. And in their part of town, again, about 10 city blocks away from the Bonaventure Hotel. One of the witnesses happened to glance up and saw a small greenish aurora-like light with long streamers extending from it. Both witnesses saw it, and it didn't move during the 30 to 60 seconds that they looked at it. It appeared to be at a very high altitude. Now, whether or not this is connected, we don't know for sure, but what they described seems like they're looking at, it was in the direction of the Bonaventure Hotel. It looks like it was the same thing, but they were seeing it from a distance. Now, the Bonaventure Hotel, the full name is the International Hilton Bonaventure Hotel. We're talking about the heated pool level on the roof that's 17 floors up. So this is a fairly tall building. It's not the tallest building by any stretch of the imagination, but it's pretty dang tall.
Mm-hmm.
All right, our main event starts when a woman who was an American tourist was swimming in the swimming pool, and you might ask yourself, November in Montreal, swimming pool, but it was a heated pool, so don't worry about that. You'd be freezing your butt off, right? It was pretty cold out.
Yep.
I think I saw a weather data that said it was like -1 degree or something. I don't know, whatever. It was friggin' cold.
It must have been pretty heated then. And
Yeah.
not only was she up there swimming, but there was a lifeguard. So there must have been other people who were also swimming under these conditions, which is pretty crazy.
Well,
it would kind of suck to be that lifeguard because you're just like sitting out there. You're not in the heated pool. You're sitting out there, presumably either under on a stand, or you're not in the pool at any rate. Like, you're sitting there freezing your tits off.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have been that lifeguard.
Yeah. But Agent Ether, they can afford to heat their pool in Montreal because they don't have PG&E. Yeah. So at approximately 7:15, this woman swimming in the pool looked up and saw directly overhead, saw the UFO. It was oval shaped with a yellowish color, and it had lights coming off of it, beams of light, and it looked metallic. She notified the lifeguard on duty, who in turn notified hotel security. This is a really fun series of events in this hotel. So the guest sees a UFO and she thinks, that's weird. I don't think that's supposed to be there. She tells the lifeguard, who's like, yeah, I see it. What the hell am I supposed to do? It's not drowning. So she calls hotel security. The hotel security officer, Albert Sterling, arrives on the roof at 7:35. He watches it for a few minutes and he's like, yeah, it's not doing bad stuff in the hotel. I don't know what to do with this.
He was like awestruck by it. It was almost like this series of events where it's like a domino effect. Like more and more people kept on coming up to the roof and like, what the hell is this? And by the testimonies and the way that people described what they saw, it wasn't, it was something very odd, Right. It was something that like they had never seen before in their lives. And it captured their attention very easily, and it was something that was not easily explained,
Right. Yeah. So the security guard gets up there and he's like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't know what the hell to do with this. So he calls the police. At 7:38 p.m., he calls the MUCP, the Montreal Urban Community Police, because he's like, I'm a security guard, dude. I don't know what the hell to do with this. This is weird. And he also called Dorval Airport, but their phone line was busy. He was not able to get through to them. So the lifeguard, who we only know, some of these witnesses are anonymous, and we only know the lifeguard as Mrs. LSP. And just for the sake of naming people, I'm going to go ahead and assume that this is actually Lumpy Space Princess. And if you know what that is, you do. If you don't, you don't. So don't worry about it. You're not as big of a nerd as me. So, neener, I guess. But yeah, so Lumpy Space Princess called the La Presse newspaper, which was not that far from the building. I forget exactly how far, but they're fairly close. So they were able to get there. She also told other guests to come outside and look at the strange object. So she must have been running back into the hotel and being like, hey, guys, come on in. And so the roof had the pool and other facilities. I'm not sure what other facilities means, but there might be a gym up there. There might be a restaurant or a bar up there. I mean, if I was in charge of the place, I would put a bar or a hotel or a bar and or a restaurant up there. Cause come on, dude. You know what I mean? What more do you want? So there's other people milling about and she went and grabbed them and said, hey, come look at this stuff. By 7:35 or so, the object, it was over what the security guard said was the southeast corner of the pool. But given the size of the object, people speculate that that was just his perception and they're not really sure exactly where it was hovering. But we'll get into more of that later. But so about 7:35, he said it was hovering in the southeast corner of the pool, and there were about 12 people outside looking at it for an event that started at 7:15 or 7:30. If just a few minutes later, already there's a crowd starting to form. At 7:55, the object became brighter, and Albert phoned the police again. So he already phoned them once, and they're like, yeah, cool, buddy, cool story, whatever. Kick rocks, eh? Go do your job. We don't care about UFOs. He called him again. He's like, it's doing stuff. It started to do stuff. You guys might want to come help. I'm just a security guard. Come on. I don't want to do with this, man. Come on, help me out. But in a French accent, imagine that, but in a French accent. How cool would it be if GSP was there, by the way? That'd be badass.
Oh, as soon as I started doing the research for this, I was immediately reminded about GSP's UFO incidents.
Right.
I mean, there was that one time they were driving in a car with who was he with? He was with a couple other. I think Rashad Evans was one of them.
And what is it? I forget the manager guy, Habib
Abdullah.
Damn it,
Abdullah Abaziz.
Yeah.
You know
what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot his name, but he's like the biggest manager in UFC probably. He's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Well, in mixed martial arts in general, it's not just the UFC. He manages a ton of fighters throughout many organizations. But the one thing that always kind of made me laugh was when George St. Pierre was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked about how sometimes I will be asleep in the bed, and I will look at the clock, and then I look up back at the clock, and there are multiple hours that has gone by, and like I can't remember what happened, And it's like, George St. Pierre, are you talking about sleeping? Like, did you just go to sleep? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I find it very interesting because, we're all into, UFOs and stuff, into alien experiences and such. And to have that successful of a mixed martial artist also be into UFOs, I find it interesting. Whether I believe him or not, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe something happened to him. Yeah, maybe it didn't. But
he saw a UFO, and there were other witnesses that also saw it. Like you said, like Rashad Evans. There was a car full of people. I forget everybody who was there, but it wasn't just him and Rashad. It was a bunch of people. Which, by the way, Rashad Evans, another fucking legend, man. That guy's really good.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, dude, I love me some GSP. If I go win the lottery, the first thing I'm gonna do is contact GSP's people and be like, hey, how much to get him on the show? Because we're not like a big show, so he's not gonna just come on. We're gonna have to pay him. But how cool would that be, dude, to get him on to talk about his UFO stuff? That'd be badass,
that'd
dude.
Be epic.
Yeah.
That'd be epic. Even just to get like Angelo Overkill Hill.
Yeah.
Like that would be epic. That would be crazy. Like that'd be the best interview ever,
That'd be pretty badass, yeah. But all right, let's get back to Montreal. Let's see here. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So 7:55, the object became brighter, and Albert phoned the police again. At 8 o'clock, a journalist from the La Presse named Marcel Laroche arrived on scene to report what he saw. Yes, Agent Ether. Oh, you looked up like you were going to say something.
I'm just reviewing the notes.
Oh, okay. Cool. Fair enough.
I'm following along in your narrative.
Yeah. Okay, cool beans. Anyways, so Officer Francois Lepay of the MUCP arrived at 8:11 p.m. He said his description was that the object had 3 yellowish lights, each shining a beam of light. The object was luminous and didn't move. That's his description. And one really interesting detail about the witness descriptions is that they said that the beams of light did not fade out like you would expect them to if they were, like, let's say you shine a flashlight through like some fog or something, and it's just going to sort of dim gradually. They said the beams of light like just ended. Like they didn't gradually fade out. They just ended, which is kind of a strange detail. All right. Now, several witnesses saw a small aircraft like a Cessna fly under the clouds and under the UFO at some point. We don't have an exact time for this, but let's say it was 8:30 or so. And the witnesses said that the object was much higher than the Cessna. Mr. LaRoche estimated the airplane was at 12,000 feet and said it looked minuscule compared to the UFO. One thing that a researcher looked into, I read a report earlier by Dr. Haynes, I think it is, and he said in the report, he talks about the minimum altitude allowed, because in the area they have certain things like buildings, mountains, antennas, radio towers, just tall stuff that sticks up.
Mountains. Well, and also one of the things, like some people say, like as an explanation for the event, the sighting, it might have been a helicopter that was like had lights on under, which to me, from what people have said, like that doesn't make sense, because not only is a helicopter not going to be like typically operating at those heights, but it's also not going to be stationary in like one area for that long. It's just not possible for it, because a helicopter will like the blades of the helicopter will disturb the air in the area, and they can only hover. Helicopters can only hover in a certain spot for so long, and it's not that long. I wouldn't be able to tell you that how long they could, but it's not for 2.5 or 3 hours.
Yeah, it probably depends on the model. I don't know that much about specific helicopters, but I've heard that before too, that they can't just hover for 2 or 3 hours. But even if they could, helicopters are really, really loud, like really loud. If you're below one, and if it's at 1,200 feet, you're going to hear the damn thing. Like it's not going to be silent. All the witnesses said,
it's going to be obvious.
Yeah, all the witnesses said this thing was silent.
Yeah, when there's a helicopter coming. I've worked at several hospitals and they've all had like airlift programs. And you can hear them coming from so far away. And when they start to get close, not even when they're there, but when they're close, everything moves. Like it disturbs the air. And by the time it's on the very top of the building, which again isn't close to where you are on the ground, it's like whipping your hair around.
Yeah.
It's super loud. Yeah.
And it's very loud. Yeah, it's very loud.
Yeah, I've been there at the hospital when they land on top of, there was one in Southern California where she used to work. And I've been there when a helicopter landed on top of the building. How tall would you say that helipad was up there? Like 100 feet, 150 feet, something? At least 100 to 150 feet at minimum, right?
Well, how many stories?
I'm not sure. It was a big building though.
Yeah, it was a big hospital.
And yeah, like she was saying, you can feel the wind and it is loud, like way louder than you think it's going to be, like super loud.
Yeah, you hear those helicopters come in and you just get inside because you don't want to be outside when they land. It's just too loud.
Yeah. So we have, like I was saying, as far as the altitude goes, there are local laws and ordinances that say the minimum flight height for a Cessna is going to be 1,200 feet. So that's the minimum they're allowed to operate at for safety reasons so they don't run into crap. So 1,200 is the bare minimum. And if it was a Cessna, it was possibly a little higher than that. I think the Cessnas are allowed to operate between 1,200 and 3,500, something like that. So somewhere in that range. But whatever it was, that gives us sort of a ballpark for where the Cessna was versus the UFO. And the witnesses definitely saw it pass under the UFO. So that gives us like a little bit of a ballpark to work with if we want to estimate certain things, which I'll get into later on. All right, so Mr. LaRoche estimated the airplane was at 1,200 feet and said, okay, I already read that part, looked minuscule. Now, let's see, this guy's name, Beliveau, 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 I think that's how you would say that.
Beliveau.
There is a reason I never took French. I have no idea to pronounce anything in French.
Yeah, Beliveau. I think I don't think I mentioned him yet. Did I mention him yet? I don't think so. But he was a journalist on the scene, and he received a couple days later. He received a letter from Francois Chevalier. So I'll go ahead and spell that out for you because I probably pronounced that wrong. Francois. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly. Francois. So Francois. The last name is Chevrefils. I don't know. How would you say that?
I wouldn't.
Chevalier. I just kind of mumble something.
Yeah, I'm just not going to try.
I just kind of mumble something in a fake French accent. It's probably close enough, So anyways, he received a letter from we'll call him Francis, saying that his friend, Jean, Jean or whatever, Jean, his friend Jean saw the object between 7:30 and 8 o'clock from his small airplane. Jean did not want to be interviewed and may or may not have been the pilot of the small airplane. He did fill out a MUFON report, but that report is behind a paywall, and I wasn't about to go pay a bunch of money just for one report that probably says exactly what I just read to you. You know what I mean?
These paywall things, they drive me nuts. There's actually newspaper articles like from the Montreal Gazette, the actual articles, and they're behind a paywall.
Yeah. I understand they got to make money to stay in business, but on the other hand, if I was paying for all that stuff, doing the research on this show, it would cost me quite a lot of money. I just don't have that kind of a budget for this stuff, I'm tempted to do MUFON anyways, because they do have a lot of resources, but the frustrating thing for me is they get their reports from witnesses for free. They don't pay their witnesses anything, and they put that behind a paywall, so they charge money for it. Now, I don't mind paying money for all their documentaries and all their journal articles and all that stuff. That's fine. I'll pay for that. But the witness statements should not be behind a paywall because they don't pay for it themselves. It's free, totally free. But anyways, that's a minor gripe, and I'll probably break down and get a membership eventually because they do have a lot of good stuff on there. But I don't currently have a membership, so I didn't have access to that particular report. But either way, we don't know for sure if this was the pilot in question, but no other pilots have stepped forward claiming to see the UFO, at least not pilots from the air. There is a pilot we'll talk about in a little bit, but he was on top of the hotel, so he doesn't count. But that's probably the pilot who was flying the Cessna. I mean, you can imagine, right? And if you were flying that Cessna, let's say you're doing your thing, you're not really paying much attention, and all of a sudden you look up because you see your cockpit is being lit up by some strange light, and you look up and you're like, holy shit, you know?
Right. Well, also because like most of the testimony that people gave, like this object was gigantic.
Yes.
It wasn't just like your regular, flying saucer. This thing was huge, and it was also because like it's kind of startling how like big this might have been, like hearing the testimony from the people that experienced it. Because it was very high. It was up there in altitude, and so for it to still be that big as some people described it as being, it's just like, how big was this thing really? I mean, it was obviously a gigantic object of some sort, giving off light and stuff, and it seemed like I don't know. It seems like it definitely wasn't like something like a helicopter, like we described earlier, or Aurora Borealis. It was something very substantial.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you have so many people that experienced it and also were willing to give a testimony too. They definitely saw something that just like, it just like, they were awestruck at what they saw, they're just like, what the hell? This is not something natural at all,
Yeah. Well, I've actually, I know, I wouldn't say I'm friends, but I like to think of them as friends, but more acquainted with certain Canadians that I've spoken with before. And I get the impression that there's not as much of a stigma in Canada as there is in the States. So I think that obviously there are some people who do want to remain anonymous, but I don't think it's as big of a deal. Like, people are not being completely ostracized or losing their jobs or anything like that to the extent that they do in America. I think the culture is a little different, but I might be misinterpreting that. I don't know. But we have a comment in the chat here. Mass Gibb says, loving the listening from New Zealand, all the way over almost on the other side of the world. I'm not sure where the exact other side of the world is, but man, that's just so crazy. It's like pretty interesting. It's exciting that we have people listening from all the way over in New Zealand. That's pretty cool. Loving the listening from New Zealand on a shitty rainy Saturday. I love the rain.
Boo.
So, yeah.
Dude, I would love to visit New Zealand one day. It's a beautiful area.
It's gorgeous here today, though. We had nice 75-degree spring sunny weather. Yeah.
That's where they made one of my favorite shows, Xena. They made that in New Zealand.
The Warrior Princess?
Yeah, pretty good stuff. And that show, it's really campy, and it's really pretty funny, because I don't know for sure how they hired their people, but they'll have an episode where they have like a warlord, and this is supposed to be taking place in like ancient Greece, but they'll get like one of the native people from New Zealand, so he doesn't look like he's from Greece,
Or talk like he's from Greece.
Yeah, and it's
awesome.
But it gives the show like this really unique flavor.
Like a flavor, yeah.
Yeah, it's really kind of an interesting show. But anyway, so continuing the comment. Good to hear you live again. Been a while since I could. Got my 7% Tui beer going. All right. Hell yeah, dude. 7%.
That sounds good to me.
I'm personally having a Pliny the Elder, which is 8%. So, I mean, hey, that'll get her done. You know what I mean?
You always have to flex on the Pliny, don't you?
We always have to drop by the local store that carries them on recording night. He's like, I don't know how this happened. It just fell into my cart.
How did that get into my cart? I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm having a pretty good damn beer myself as well. It's 5.4% alcohol, but it's from College Street Brewery, and it's called Big Blue Van. It's like a blueberry wheat beer, and it's pretty damn tasty.
That sounds good. I haven't had that one. I have a question for Mass Gibb. All right, I know they do shoeies in Australia. Is that a thing in New Zealand as well? Or are people in New Zealand maybe a little less psychotic, perhaps a little more cultured than people in Australia?
Equally horrified.
Yeah. Which, I get the impression that It's not that I'm talking shit. It's just, I get the impression that Australians have a good sense of humor, so I don't think they'll be offended by me saying that. You
Also,
know what I mean?
maybe they're kind of badass.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you got to be pretty something to drink beer out of a shoe. I'll tell you that.
Right, and to live in Australia.
Oh yeah.
I think part of it is like people spit in it too. Ugh. I don't know.
From what I understand, that's the proper way to do it.
Yeah.
You got a hock a loogie in the shoe, and then fill the shoe up with beer, and then you have somebody like Tai Tuivasa,
Yeah,
fill.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds like guy stuff. I can't picture a bunch of like college girls out there doing this.
I was just gonna say, there's nothing more awesome than watching Tai Tuivasa, knock somebody out and then drink beer out of his shoe, dude. There's just something about it. You know what I mean? That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. But all right, let's get back to Montreal, the Montreal UFO. Where was I? Let's see. Okay, so yeah, the airplane. All right, now at 8:15, a mother and daughter were driving on Champlain Boulevard near the Douglas Hospital. They saw two large white spots of light in the sky and a number of smaller lights surrounding it. They didn't hear any sound, and the lights weren't moving. And this would be in the direction of the Bonaventure Hotel. So once again, we have a corroborating witness who went on record from a distance. So that makes this, again, the sighting makes it less likely that it's some sort of local anomaly specific to the hotel. So it wasn't just the people on the hotel seeing it. It was people all over the place. At 8:20, Officer Lippe, Officer Lippe, how would you say that?
Lippe.
Lippe?
Officer Lippe? No?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. Okay, anyways. Officer Lippe called Sergeant Masson for backup, and Sergeant Masson arrived at 8:30. So here we have this chain of events. You got the woman tourist that looks up and is like, that's not supposed to be there. Lifeguard, that's not supposed to be there. And the lifeguard looks up and goes, yeah, that's not supposed to be there. I don't know what to do with
the
that.
lifeguard's like, yeah, you right.
Calls the security guard. Security guard comes up and is like, that's not supposed to be there. What the fuck? What am I supposed to do with that? Calls the cops. The cops show up. They're like, that's not supposed to be there. I don't know what to do with that. Let's call more cops. They call more cops.
It sounds like a scene out of like South Park almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
and they just keep calling people the whole time. They just keep calling more and more people like, hey, I'm here. Yep. It's really here. I don't know what to do. Maybe you should send somebody else, it's pretty hilarious.
Nobody knows what to do. They know that they're seeing something very, substantial, but like, they don't know what to do. They're like, what the hell? Like,
so
I would be the same way too. Like, I wouldn't know what to do with that. I was like, all right, we're seeing it, but I don't know what to do about it.
So Officer Lippe called, Officer Lippe got there about 8:20. And Sergeant Masson got there at 8:30. Masson was overwhelmed by the object and called the RCMP at 8:44. So you got, the local police calling the region. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing there's just like in the United States, we'll have like the local police, and then we'll have like the county police. And usually that's the police department and the sheriff's department. At least that's how it is in California.
Yeah.
So that's how it is here. So I'm guessing that's what it is. Like the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I'm guessing those are like more regional, less tied to a specific city, I'm guessing, based on this. But anyways, the police called the RCMP at 8:44 p.m. Investigator Luc Morin was assigned to the case. Officer Lippe called the MUCP's district director after this. He's like, still don't know what to do. So he called the district director, Dennis Paré, who called the RCMP for in situ assistance. So we have all these people calling all these people basically in a state of confusion. And then Officer Lippe also called the control tower at Dorval Airport at 8:52. He got through this time, and the security guard did not get through, but he got through, and the tower said that he was not the first person to call them about the UFO. So that suggests that there's a whole bunch of witnesses that we don't know about or that haven't gone officially on record, as you would expect for a sighting over a major metropolitan area like this. You would expect there to be a great many number of witnesses.
And that may be the reason why that phone line was so busy as well.
Right. Yeah. He asks the tower, but the tower said they did not have the object on radar. Sergeant Letendre of the RCMP also called the airport at around this time and was referred to the flight path department. And it doesn't say, I couldn't find anywhere what else happened there. They probably just gave him the runaround or just told him, not ours, you know. LaRoche is the journalist, went back to his car for a 35 millimeter camera sometime between 8:30 and 8:45. So he went all the way downstairs and came all the way back up. At 9 o'clock, Jules Bellevaux and R, I didn't have his first name, just the initial R, Malivaux, Maillaux, Malivaux? Malo?
Not Malavox, that's for sure.
Malo? R.
Malibu?
Malo? I don't know. Apologies to anybody out there who's French speaking person, who are both also journalists from the La Presse. They arrived at about 9 o'clock. And also at about 9 o'clock, Dennis Paré arrived. Investigator Morin of the RCMP called Major Thompson, the commander of military operations of Canada's Department of National Defense, to ask him if there were any military operations in the area. He said that there were not. Uh-oh.
Doggies.
I think it's Pereira.
Is it Pereira? Okay, I might have gotten that one wrong.
Doggies.
I might be wrong too. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm just guessing, like, you know, George St. Pierre, or Pierre, maybe it's Pierre.
I don't know. It's all French to me.
Again, apologies to the French speakers, and also apology to George St. Pierre too, which we highly respect.
Oh,
you know,
isn't Dennis? Don't they say Dene? Dene? Pare?
Yeah. I think you might be right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that from playing whatchamacallit, Red Dead Online, right?
Oh yeah, Red Dead 2.
Yeah, because you and Agent Locke we're always telling me in the game, it's not Saint Denis, it's Saint Denis. I'm like, all right.
Saint Denis.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, well, riddle me this then. Is it Dennis the Menace or Denis the Menace? You know? That was my argument.
Well, it depends on which culture is you know.
I guess so, yeah. Hey, this is America. You know what I mean? America.
Yeah, we pronounce things differently here sometimes.
All right. Investigator Morin of the RCMP. Oh, I already said that. Never mind. Between 9 and 9:05, LaRoche took his first photograph. The conditions were not good. It was dark and it was hard to get a good exposure. So because of this, he was not a professional photographer. He was he was a journalist, and it was his personal camera. So he called the photographer at La Presse, and that photographer told him to place the camera on a bench for stability and use a 30-second manual exposure. So he did this and took a picture with a 30-second manual exposure, and then he took another picture 2 to 3 minutes later. And these are the photographs we have online of the UFO. Now, to be fair, they're not perfect pictures because the conditions were really bad. It was hazy.
Yeah.
There was some clouds, and the light was not good, so he had to do a long time exposure. The camera was probably not a professional quality camera, but the photographs do match what the witnesses are reporting, even if they're not perfect photographs. And yeah, go ahead, ETA.
Well, I was just saying that the photographs are compelling.
Yes.
You know, and like what we had talked about, like some people said it was a helicopter hovering above, you know, like that doesn't look to me in those pictures, at least that doesn't support that, you know, perspective, you know?
Yeah.
And as far as like also the explanation of like it being like a aurora borealis, like not just the testimony that, you know, people had given, and it's not like the pictures aren't very clear, but they are compelling. Like it does seem to be a very odd, you know, situation there depicted in the picture. Like if that was a very large structure that was giving off the light that it was giving and such, and also hovering in that area for a very long time, I wouldn't have an explanation, like a reasonable one, to be honest, like to explain these pictures,
Right. And I've taken pictures myself at nighttime just to test out my camera to see how good it looks. And it does not take accurate pictures at night from my cell phone. That's, of course, a digital photograph is going to act very differently than a film photograph. But my point is that the photographs, they're not going to be 100% accurate to what the witnesses were seeing in person there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
especially when you have a bunch of fog involved or cloud cover involved there as well.
right.
It's going to make it look different, very different from what the naked eye can see. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's really good. These are to me, some of the best photos I've seen actually, because they do show the lights, and they do show the haze. They do not look fake. They do not look digitally enhanced or photoshopped or any of this other stuff or airbrushed. They look like genuine photos. If they were faked somehow, they were extraordinarily good fakes. You know what I mean? But they do match what the witnesses said. Like what the witnesses reported. So that makes them really exciting. You can go look at these photos right now and you're looking at the UFO that we're talking about. That is very rare. There's very few cases where we have this kind of photographic evidence.
Well, and also the negatives from these photos were also investigated, from what I understand, and they were proven to be there was no manipulation there. Like these photos are actual photos that were taken at the time it was claimed to be, and like they weren't manipulated.
Right.
So that's pretty important too, I think.
Yeah. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily rule out a hoax, because you could take a photograph of an object that you're hoaxing, like they do with movies, right? But I mean, again, because we have so many witnesses and stuff, I don't think that's the case. But I just want to throw that out there. Just because the negatives were not altered doesn't mean that it wasn't a hoax photograph necessarily. But I believe 100% that those photographs were genuine.
Yeah, I think it's more of a question of what they were saying. Not that it was a hoax, but what they were really seeing.
Yeah.
Is there an explanation for it? And we just don't know what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. At about 9:30, the three La Presse journalists left to go write an article that would appear in the newspaper a day or two. I think
that blew my mind.
Yes.
Like, it's still there. Something could happen. There's three of you.
Right.
And you're all going to go.
Right. I mean, if that was me, I don't care about deadlines. I don't care about staying up all night. I'm not going anywhere. As long as that thing's there, for better or worse, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to jump in the pool, even if I don't have a bathing suit. I'm in that pool, and I'm getting a beer, and I'm hanging out and watching the UFO. That's it. What's up, Agent Ether?
I don't care if I don't have a towel.
He needs you.
Okay. The cryptid wants to come up into my lap. Okay, come here.
He does.
All right, there he goes. There you go. You happy now?
Oh, he wants the belly rubs.
He wants the belly rubs. I better do it. Otherwise, he'll bite me and I'll become a cryptid.
Will you shrink too? You become like little.
Yeah, I'll become real tiny. Yeah. Or 8-pound dog. All right. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, yeah. The three journalists left, which again, it's just, what are you guys doing? I don't know. Maybe they've been reporting on so much stuff, murders and crime and politicians, corruption, and maybe they're just so jaded that they're like, yeah, whatever, UFO, I don't give a fuck. I got to go to bed,
More like, I got to make my deadline. My name has to be attached to this story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess they do have deadlines. They have to get it typed up and submitted by a certain time in order for it to hit the presses to get out for the next morning.
Right. And it's not like they can just email it.
Yeah.
Back then, they couldn't be like, okay, hold on, sending you some photos and I'm typing up my story.
Right. Yeah. So the Quebec Provincial Police and Canadian Security Intelligence Service also sent people to the scene. And I also saw other really rumors, because I didn't see it substantiated, that the military was there as well. But I'm not 100% sure about that. But basically, anybody and everybody was there. At 9:40 p.m., an Air Canada pilot went to the rooftop. He estimated the object was 8,000 to 10,000 feet in altitude.
Now, was he a guest?
I'm not sure if he was a guest or not. I didn't see that.
Okay,
I believe he was.
Yeah.
He wasn't flying at the time.
No. He was on the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably a guest. Now, his estimate, 8 to 10,000 feet, is a little higher. Most people will estimate this at 6,000 feet or lower, like between 3,500 feet and 6,000 feet. And I suspect that estimate might be because the object was so friggin' big that it messed with your perception, you know?
Like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
It's the Grand Canyon of UFOs.
If you see something that you're used to seeing, like a 747, and you're a pilot, you look up, you could estimate that fairly accurately. You could tell the difference between 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever. You're going to be able to get pretty close. But an object that you've never seen before, that nobody's ever seen before, and that you don't have any reference for seeing something that size in the sky, you're going to be way off probably. That's why I think he was probably way off from other people. And remember, we do have not accurate, we do have ballparks based on other data. Across the street from the hotel was a 45-story commercial building. It was being built at the time, and they had these really bright construction lights, I guess, to light the work area, I suppose. They're
like floodlights.
Yeah, they're like floodlights. They're on cranes. They had like those big tower cranes and stuff. They're on the building. They had a lot of lights over there. Officer Lip, I don't know. He contacted the superintendent and asked him to turn off all of the construction lights. And the superintendent, being the awesome individual that they must have been, turned off the lights. Now, this was really, really important because they were trying to make sure that the lights weren't somehow reflecting off of clouds and causing this sighting. Because remember, the object was stationary. It was not moving around. It was just hovering there. So it could have very well been the lights from across the street reflecting off of something like a cloud layer or the haze layer. But they turn off the lights in the building and the UFO is still there. It doesn't change at all. So that rules out the lights from that particular building. And we're lucky that this officer had the idea to do that. Otherwise, we'd always have the doubt that it could have been somehow those lights, but it wasn't. We know for sure that it wasn't those lights. At 9:45, Officer Lipe called Lieutenant Proulx. That must be a typo. I don't know. Anyways, he called Lieutenant Pro to bring him a video camera. But by the time that camera arrived, the UFO was already gone, unfortunately. But some people, if you read discussions, are like, yeah, dude, this UFO was here for like 3 hours and they still didn't really get that many pictures of it. What the hell? What do we need to happen to get a good photo of a UFO? You know, like what more do you need? How much do you need it to be there? But I did see other, I don't want to say reports, but I did see rumors that other witnesses, police officers and other people did have cameras and were taking photos, but those photos are nowhere to be found, suggesting that perhaps they were confiscated by the government, as happens in many of these cases. So I believe that there is more photographic evidence in this case. We just don't have access to it. Did you see anything like that?
Classified.
What? I was looking at the cryptid. He looks so happy.
Yeah, he's a happy little guy.
No, I did. I just saw some,
boy.
hearsay, some rumors. And the problem when you research sometimes online is that the websites are referencing one another. It's kind of a circular sort of argument. Like, I feel like they all have one source, but then they're all citing each other.
Yeah.
And you're like, where is that one source that you are citing?
I saw an awful lot of inaccurate information reading about this one. A lot of websites that seem to be filling in the gaps, you know?
Yeah.
Filling in the gaps very inaccurately. That's why it's good to go to witness testimonies and things like that, because they're not filling in the gaps. They are the people who saw it. You know, they're just telling you what they saw.
That's what she said.
Yeah. But bum. I need a sound effect for that. I have one on there somewhere.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry.
Yeah. All right. Officer O'Connor from the MUCP arrived to take photos. I saw that, but we don't have access to those photos. It says in the police report or whatever that he didn't take any because the clouds were too thick. Come on. Come on. You're going to go all the way up to the 17th floor with your camera and you're going to be like, there's clouds. I'm not going to take any pictures.
Yeah. Never mind.
I don't believe that for an instant. Investigator Morin called the RCMP headquarters at 9:58 to ask for additional backup in addition to the backup that they've already gotten to help solve the mystery, which that indicates that pretty much everybody there is pretty much freaked the fuck out. They're like, we don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Let's call more people. Maybe they'll know what to do. But,
yeah.
it's just a really funny story because they just keep calling people. And the people that get there are like, fuck, I don't know what to do with this, man. Let's call more people. It just keeps going and going.
And also, like, how much time did this, this whole experience happen? Like, how long that structure was in the air, or whatever you want to call it. Like, that makes sense that they reacted the way that they did, because it wasn't just like a quick experience. You know what I mean? It wasn't just there for 5 minutes or something like that. It was there for hours.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that they would react to it this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jean, what the fuck is that? I do not know. I did not put that there. You did not put that there. Who put it there? I do not know. Let's call Bobby. Bobby might know who put it there.
You're ridiculous.
We must contact the new prime minister.
Yeah. Call the prime minister. Maybe Trudeau. Maybe he knows who put it there. Call him. Trudeau is asleep. We cannot call him, and he has not been elected yet anyways. I don't know.
The new prime minister will not let us drink our wine.
I have no idea who the prime minister was in 1990. No idea at all. I'm pretty sure the current one is Justin Trudeau. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
All right, well, let's see. Where were we? All right, so they called RCMP headquarters for more backup at 9:58, but the object disappeared around 10 p.m. because the clouds became increasingly thick and hid the object. So that's the interesting thing about this is nobody saw it fly off or fly away. The clouds just got too thick for them to see it.
And I do have to say, reading that, reading the description and the haze, et cetera, does make me wonder if it's an atmospheric phenomenon. Now, I do know a witness said that they thought it was metallic.
Many witnesses reported seeing
that they thought it was metallic.
Object,
yes, but I don't think that necessarily rules out an atmospheric phenomena.
No, not necessarily. I mean, there are some very rare phenomenon, and it's possible that a lenticular cloud combined with a bizarre atmospheric phenomenon could somehow account for this, something that only happens once every 1,000 years or something, right?
Yeah.
It's theoretically possible, I suppose, and we can't rule that out. One thing, I'll talk about it during conclusions. I have a little bit more here to get through. So once the object was no longer visible, people just sort of started to wander off. They left kind of one by one until they were gone.
But they left so early.
Some of them, yeah.
Are they old? They're like, man, it's past my bedtime?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
They're like, this is cool. I've got my fill. I'm going to go back.
I got to take the kids to school in the morning.
Yeah.
It's a work day.
I'll be like, I'm staying here until those clouds go away. I don't care how long it takes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah. If I saw something like that in the sky, I would stay there as long as possible. I would just, I would definitely want to ride it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just find out, all right. I mean, because once something like that dissipates or it goes away, that is a big tell in itself as well. As far as what you think you're experiencing.
At the same time, we weren't there. Maybe it was just such an overwhelming experience. And after a while, they wanted to just leave and process it.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So a guy named Pierre Camoton was driving home from work between 10:30 and 11. He saw very odd lights, a strange luminous object in a boomerang shape low in the sky, at about the level of clouds. He said that the lights were so bright, they illuminated the inside of his car. Now, this is between 10:30 and 11. Wow. So this is after they stopped seeing it above the hotel. That's
pretty bright.
Yeah. When he arrived home, he watched the object hover near the Hydro-Quebec power station. He heard a purring sound and believed the object was a dirigible. I paid attention to the spelling, Agent ETA. We were discussing this on one of our previous episodes. According to what I found, it's spelled dirigible. So dirigible. Yeah.
That's not what it, no,
Okay.
it's dirigible.
So you were correct. Dirigible.
No. No.
So he believed the object was a dirigible with only the gondola
dirigible.
visible below the clouds. I heard that. He saw the
Hey,
craft.
whichever comes first.
Yeah. Tomato, you know. He saw the craft for about 10 or 15 minutes. The Longer Point military base had a power outage. This is a military base in the area. They had a power outage between 11:08 and 11:50, and the base gets its power from the Hydro-Quebec station that this witness saw the UFO hovering over. Pretty weird stuff.
Quite the coincidence.
Yeah. So several of the witnesses drew sketches of what they saw. Lumpy Space Princess drew an oval with 8 lights, all giving off
What?
beams.
Wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute. We can't just pass by that name. What was that name again?
Lumpy Space Princess.
You think that's a man or a woman?
No, that's just the initials. LSP is okay. That's the only way I can interpret those initials, though. That's the
I
only
thought
way.
little space person, but he's not going for it.
No way. Lumpy Space Princess. That was the lifeguard, remember? So she drew an oval of 8 lights, all giving off beams. She said it looked like something out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Mr. Sterling, the security guard, sketched the object as well. He described between 6 and 9 bright lights, comparing them to a welding arc. So that would be very bright and probably white light rather than different colors.
Yeah.
He thought that the lights were oriented horizontally or on the edge of the object, not vertically, like they were shining out towards the side. He said, it was something artificial, not human. So, I mean, a lot of the witnesses said they saw an actual craft, not just some sort of anomalous lights. There were some differences between the number of lights reported, but you can look up these witness sketches online if you want, but there are differences between them, but you can explain this based on the fact that some of the witnesses got there rather late, like at 9:30 or 9:40, when the clouds would have been obscuring more of the object. A lot of the witnesses described the lights on one side of the craft being brighter than another, which could perhaps suggest that the craft is tilted rather than completely horizontal. It could be the lights on one side are just bigger or brighter than the other. It could be
perspective.
Yeah, it could be perspective. It could be any number of things, or it could be that whatever this craft has, like a stealth field that was malfunctioning, and it malfunctioned more on one side than the other. I don't know. There's any number of possible explanations.
That might be reaching a little.
Hey, it's not reaching. It's possible.
Okay, I'm just saying that's a little.
I'm just throwing a theory. I'm just throwing a theory out there.
I like more. Of,
you don't have to judge.
No. I like more of the idea, like Hitchhiker's Guide from the Galaxy. Mm-hmm. What was it? The somebody else's problem.
Yeah,
field?
They just used that. I don't know if he was referencing it, but they were talking about in the most recent UFO hearing, and the guy who was talking about Arrow specifically said that they're trying to make it somebody else's problem or something. And the general commentary is like, did he just say that? Are they really admitting that they're trying to basically put this onto somebody else? But I also wondered if he was referencing the Hitchhiker's Guide, because that's in the Hitchhiker's Guide. They say, okay, you can't really make anything invisible. Instead, they erect a somebody else's problem field around the object. And when you look at it, you ignore it mentally because you perceive it as being somebody else's problem. So you can't see it.
So I didn't mean, and I don't mean quite, I'm kind of like that, where each person is perceiving it differently.
Yeah.
Because it's some sort of, not just a camouflage, but a mental perception filter.
Right.
So talk about reaching. Now I'm reaching.
Well,
So it's a manipulation of reality, not necessarily your vision.
Right.
Well, and not only that, different people have different nighttime vision abilities too. So if it's really dark out, different people have different sensitivity. People who don't eat carrots are going to see very poorly. People who do eat carrots probably see a little bit better at night.
Well, I have very poor nighttime vision, and I see like auras around lights. If that makes sense, they're not focused. They're not
How often
clear.
do you eat carrots?
All the time. It's not a carrot thing. I just have terrible eyesight. I've been wearing glasses.
You might have a
I don't
carrot
know.
deficiency.
I don't know if I
Tell you
believe
where to
that because
put that
I
carrot.
I rarely eat carrots ever, and I can still see pretty well at nighttime. Like I'm not going to say like I have night vision or anything like that, but I can see pretty well at night.
I hate driving at night. Everything's just blurry.
I wonder if you just process carrots more efficiently, ETA. So you only need to eat.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like when I do eat carrots, it's usually like in a bowl of like chicken soup or something like that. I definitely enjoy like a steamed carrot or something in a soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My kids have really good vision. Thank goodness they didn't inherit the poor vision from my side of the family.
They got my vision. I have pretty good vision.
Well, they're still young, so
no. By the time I was in kindergarten, I was wearing glasses. Like,
really?
Yeah, I have like really bad vision, and theirs is like perfect, just perfect.
Yeah.
Well, good for them.
Yeah, not so good for me.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is at that point.
Yeah.
All right, back to it.
Back to the Montreal UFO sighting.
I'm looking at these drawings that these people did, and especially like the first handful are very similar.
They're all very similar.
Yeah, they're all very similar.
Yeah. They're drawn slightly different because, none of the people who drew them are artists. You can tell that. But they're giving a pretty good depiction of what they saw.
Right. It looks like it looks pretty much like what I draw. I'm not quite an artist either. I'd be like, well, there's these circles and
it's a stick figure UFO.
They kind of look like this.
Yeah. So but they all basically saw beams of light. They saw an oval object, oval metallic object. They saw, the similar number of lights, most of them. One of the witnesses only reported 3 lights, but, again, I already went over why that might, plausible reason for that. But they're all very, very similar. They all reported very similar stuff. So Pierre Comartin, who saw it while driving, sketched what you would expect if you were seeing the object from an angle, from a distance. He also made a sketch, and it looks like the same object, just at an angle. You can, that sketch is in there as well, Agent Ether, if you want to look at that.
I did see it.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool too, because he probably didn't even meet the other witnesses, so they had zero chance to collude with each other. So I thought that was really cool.
And it looks like most people said they were white and yellow.
Yeah.
Bright white and yellow lights.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about the size. Based on the witness testimony, we have an approximation of angular size, because they asked the witnesses, how big was it compared to this object held at arm's length, like a silver?
That's what she said.
Like a loonie, I guess, is like their dollar coin in Canada. So we have the focal length of the camera, which gives us a little piece of data, the angular size. We have the approximate altitude based on the minimum altitude of the Cessna and the cloud layer and the height of the haze layer and stuff like that. So we can get a ballpark for the approximate size of this object. Now, the object could be anywhere from approximately 1,700 feet to 4,500 feet across, depending on what altitude you want to use. Now, 4,500 feet across is about a mile, just short of a mile. That's probably like, I don't know, 6/8, 2/3 of a mile or 3/4 of a mile, something like that. Like,
that's a big bitch.
Yeah, that is unbelievably big. And it reminds me of the Yukon UFO that we did last time. That is huge. But even on the smaller end of estimations, 1,700 feet is enormous. We don't have anything that I'm aware of that's anywhere near that big, not even close. The closest thing we have is probably 200 or 300 feet across, not 1,700. We don't have anything that's even close to that. That is just big. That's crazy big.
And you know it's terrible? We're never going to know what it was. It's just, it drives me crazy. Like, this is it. We're talking about history.
Yeah.
And this is all the evidence we have. This is all the speculation we'll have. And so what we really need is a modern UFO sighting over like Los Angeles. And we need it like yesterday.
Well, they keep happening. So it's only a matter of time until we get another mass sighting like this, I feel like.
I need one right now.
Hopefully I'm there when it happens. That would be really cool. But there's one thing that occurred to me. So what do you think, before I get to that, what do you think the most plausible skeptical explanation is, Agent Ether?
Military exercise.
Nope. That would make sense.
So this is one that does not make sense.
Yes. We're talking about the skeptics here.
Okay, skeptics. Optical illusion.
Any guesses, Agent ETA?
I don't know, dude. I mean, I don't accept the explanations, like as far as like it being a helicopter with like lights on the bottom,
Yeah.
like floodlights or something like that. I don't accept also the explanation that it might have been Aurora Borealis.
There you go. That's the one.
Aurora, that's what most people say. It's the Aurora Borealis.
That's what the skeptics say. It was the Aurora Borealis.
It doesn't sound like it to me. I really want to see an Aurora Borealis. Like, that would be amazing. And I would also like to see, something like this that we're describing, but those are two different things.
Well, and the problem with that theory is we have witnesses who were to the north of this and saw it to the south of them. We have people from the south who saw it to the north. We have people in the hotel who saw it right above them. We have people from all different angles. We have a location for this thing. We know where it was. We have the airplane witness who saw it above him. We know exactly where this thing was. This was not the Aurora Borealis. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you have people that like the specific type of Aurora Borealis, I don't know the name of it, but like I know that you have different types. They may, because of like your perspective, it may look a certain way. That would exclude that because all the different perspectives that we have, and different, the different people that experience this and stuff. And to me, like I'm no expert, but like, to me, it doesn't sound like this would be the right explanation for it. You know what I mean? Whatever it was something that was definitely not natural. And I think most of the people that experienced this and watched it, they knew that when they were watching it, so you can hear that in the testimony too, from a lot of these people that experienced it. It just, it wasn't a natural event. To me, and that's not the way it sounds like, at least, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever it was a extraordinary event. The people that had witnessed it, it definitely made an impact on them. And it was, extraordinary. Like I said, it's something very different than your modern day normal event that you'd ever experience. It was something that was just like out of the ordinary at the very least.
Yeah, it was definitely
much more than that.
Definitely unusual. The one thing that did occur to me is that it could be a terrestrial. So first of all, it could be a terrestrial vehicle based on the fact alone that people who saw it, they didn't report any unusual movements that would go against the known laws of physics. So let's compare this to another sighting. I don't know if you remember, like the Illinois 2000 sighting, where people reported these giant triangular shaped craft who would move from a standstill, and then in the blink of an eye, they'd be in a completely different location, right? Basically defying our laws of physics. Nobody reported that in this case. So this could be a terrestrial craft, but we don't have anything this big. However, I have read there are old reports or I mean plans. I mean, I found the plans. They said they never built it, but there are also rumors of more recent craft that are basically giant dirigibles designed to carry like a whole battalion at once. We talked about this on the Phoenix Lights case, And I think that that's a possibility here, that this could be a giant dirigible that uses a stealth technology so that it's not seen. And let's say that they had some kind of mechanical problems and they were forced to hover in place over this hotel. So then they turned on their lights so that airplanes and shit didn't run into them. So that while they were in that spot where they weren't supposed to be, nobody would crash into them and everybody dies, right? So that's what occurred to me. I was like, that could be that, because nobody saw this thing really moving around crazy. They just saw it sitting there. So I think that's a plausible explanation. I don't know. What do you think, Agent Ether?
Well, do you think they actually had people inside of it? I'm just wondering. Or do you think they were testing it? I just feel like in these situations, that would mean there were so many people involved. And the more people that are involved in something like this, the harder it is to keep it a secret. And we've mentioned before this kind of dirigible theory. And I would have to say, if that's true, if it were going to be plausible, it would definitely have to be something that was being tested, not something that's actively being used.
Yeah.
But it's a new technology and something they're trying to perfect before they put it into use.
Remember the Phoenix Lights were 96 or 97?
Yeah.
I think 96. I'd have to look that up. It's been a while. But this was in 1990. So, I mean, that's in the ballpark. It could be, right?
Yeah.
But also, that's one of the things that I find interesting is people say, oh, well, nobody can ever keep a secret. But I strongly disagree, because they keep a lot of secrets. And people who say that, they don't understand that people in the military are not normal people, right? These are people who are very willing to keep secrets. They are patriots. They're willing to sacrifice their lives for their country. They're not everyday people. They're exceptional people, and they will absolutely keep secrets. They do keep secrets.
Well, and they hold themselves to different standards than the regular public, and what they're willing to do, and the morals in which they abide by are different, So
Dude,
I don't believe that notion at all. If
there's an entire friggin' airline that flies out of Las Vegas to cart people back and forth to Area 51. It's Janet Airlines. You can see them there at the airport. If you ever go, keep your eye out for Janet Airlines. That's the airline that takes people to Area 51 back and forth, because it's so remote that you can't really commute in. So they just fly people in and out of there. An entire, multiple planes every day flying in and out of there. How many employees do they have there? Who knows? Could be in the hundreds. We're talking about civilians. We're talking about military. We're talking about a butt ton of people. How many secrets have leaked out of Area 51? Not that many.
Well, how many secrets have been kept too? Just not just in the private sector, but also in the business sector as well. You talk about non-disclosure agreements. How many people have signed that? And not given up information. There's got to be a metric ton of information that has not been disclosed because people have signed an agreement not to expose it or reveal it.
Yeah. Some people are willing to sell out themselves and, whatever they know, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people, they don't even need the non-disclosure agreement. They have their personal integrity to where they wouldn't do that. That's not everybody, but I think that's more people than we think.
I've actually had to sign non-disclosure agreements for some different jobs I've had.
I've only had to sign a non-disclosure agreement once, and I can't tell you what it was for. No, but that's true.
I see what you did.
I did sign one once, and I won't tell you what it's for because it's more boring than whatever you're imagining right now. Really not that exciting. But all right, let's wrap it up here with a quote from the report. There's a report online from Dr. Richard Haynes, who did some research on this case, and he concludes, the evidence for the existence of a highly unusual, hovering, silent, large object is indisputable, as it has been in other such cases. The present evidence includes the testimony of over 10 reliable adult eyewitnesses and 2 color photographs. One sketch portrays a round-shaped object with at least 6 small round lights around its perimeter. Most of the other sketches show a generally circular arc with 3 or more small lights along its length. What type of physical object could produce this type of image along with linear rays of light? And then he continues a little bit later on. Perhaps of equal importance with the overall scope of the aerial phenomenon was the almost total lack of official response to it. No action of any kind was taken by personnel of the St. Hubert military base after they were notified of the aerial object hovering above the center of the city. As far as is known, they did not even report it to the North American Radar Defense or NORAD Coordination Center. Authorization to use Canadian Defense Forces must come from the Premier of the province involved. However, since the phenomenon did not appear to evidence any security threat, and the military does not have any clear mandate to study such phenomenon, they did not seek permission from the Premier to take action. In short, no one did anything beyond some individual efforts by MUCP and RCMP personnel at the Bonaventure Hotel. The object remains unidentified at this time. Now, I do disagree with one of the things he says here. Just because it doesn't appear to be the threat, the fact that it's there in the first place is a threat. Look at these weather balloons that we shot down recently. We don't know what they're there for. We don't know why they're there, but they're not ours. And it turned out they were Chinese spy balloons. So if it's not ours and nobody said they were sending it there, it is a threat by default. That is how the military looks at things. So to say that the military would just look at this and shrug and be like, whatever, we don't care, that's bullshit. The military absolutely cares about this kind of stuff, whether or not they admit it, because that is what they do. If you're the military, you cannot allow foreign incursions into your airspace, whether it's terrestrial or otherwise. You cannot allow that because you no longer have a sovereign nation if other entities or nations are allowed to come and go as they please, you know?
Yeah. And you have to be at the very least aware of any kind of thing like that. And if you can't explain it, then that makes you even more paranoid, I would assume, you know?
Yeah. I have another quote here from Robert Masson. He said in a later interview after the event, he said, "I'm convinced that I saw something that wasn't made by any inhabitants of this planet. There's no doubt in my mind it came from somewhere else than Earth." Now that goes to show you just how freaky this thing was to people at the scene. And like I said, I'm not necessarily convinced that this was extraterrestrial, but I do find that quote interesting, that a couple of the witnesses actually said they thought that it was not from here. They said it was somewhere else, you know? So you have to take that into consideration. I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but they thought it did not look normal at all. All right. And one more little blurb I have here is that Masson, he contacted the military in addition to the local airport, and the military said that they didn't have anything on radar. But Masson said that he felt like the military was lying to him or hiding some information from him. That's just the impression he got talking to them. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting, you know? It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but, you know, just thought it was interesting. Also, I found discussion, but not proof, that all of the government records of the event were classified within 24 hours. And there's not a whole lot of official information available on this one, you know?
And why would they do that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, why would they need to classify all the information, the testimonies, with the officers involved and stuff like that? Like, if this was something that was, you know, a nothing burger or not a UFO or not something important, whatever it is, you know, then why would they feel that necessary?
Right.
You know, that's one of the big red flags I've seen in this instance as well, is like, it doesn't necessarily make sense, that in particular, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all we got for this episode. We went over a lot of stuff, and I think it's one of the best cases we've done so far. It's a really good case. Unfortunately, this is an audio only format, but if you're listening, do yourself a favor and Google those images. They're not perfect images, but they are very compelling. I love this case. You guys, what do you guys think of this one?
I wasn't super excited until I saw the photo, and I was like, that's a really good photo.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
What was the other case we looked at? It was older. It was during the war where there was a photo. Do you remember?
The Battle of Los Angeles?
Yeah, the Battle for Los Angeles. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty impressive photo. And this one, that one pales in comparison. This one's way better.
Right. This is a really good photo. Like really good. Really good. All right. Anyways, well, let's wrap it up. It's getting late and we are a little bit over time. Like I try to aim for about an hour. We're over that by a little bit. Not a big deal, but let's go ahead and wrap it up. So thank you everybody so much for listening and we will catch you next time.
Keep it strange.